At the core of this, it always comes down to the hatred of Jews.
What is it going to take for these deniers, these people in our own nation and around the world that have been marching in the streets pro-Hamas? By the way, not just pro-Palestinian, that's the lie. Because they went out on the streets on that day of rage, right? That day of rage that the Hamas leader called for. Hamas is nothing more than the most vile, disgusting terrorist organization on planet Earth. They are synonymous with evil that is as synonymous as Nazism. That kind of evil. An evil that is so pervasive and sick, like a virus, one that spreads and destroys life. It is so filled with darkness that even a baby doesn't even spark a little bit of decency inside the soul of a person who has accepted Hamas. These groups. What I saw in New York City this past week just floored me. How is it that less than a week after Israel was targeted by this terrorist proxy for Iran, the right arm of evil for the Iranian cult regime, when children were gunned down and girls were raped and babies were kidnapped and families were ripped apart like animals and children were sodomized and people were kidnapped. How is it that less than a week after that happened, people organized marches? Anti-Semites organized marches. They organized marches around the world, and they turned the victim, which was the Israeli people, into the monster. How is that possible? Only pure evil allows that to happen. And it starts when we're not looking. It starts in our schools with the teachers indoctrinating our children and lying to them. It starts when we allow people into our country that do not put America first, but put a twisted mindset first instead of this country and what it stands for, which is freedom and liberty. It comes when we become so progressive that we can't even see the forest through the trees, that we start defending evil instead of fighting it. Oh, but that's the minority, and we should look at this and that and this and that. And then instead of seeing it for what it is, good versus evil, we have created a gray space where evil is allowed to flourish and where good struggles to even breathe. I just want you for one moment to imagine, if you have children, and if you don't have children, to imagine your brother, your sister, your family, your grandmother. Imagine what it would be like. You're sitting at home, you're listening to me, you're listening to a podcast, you're cooking dinner, you're getting up for breakfast, whatever time of day it may be. You're just living your normal life. You're just doing what you do every day. You're at a concert, or you're on the phone with your mom and dad. And out of nowhere, inside your own home, men are jumping through windows. You hear commotion in the streets. You don't know what to do. You don't even know what's going on. You're like in a state of shock. You don't even realize when a man busts into your house, his keffiyeh wrapped around his neck or a gun in his hand, and he's grabbing you by the hair and he's dragging you through the house. You don't even have time to get to your kids in the other room. You don't even know what to do. Now they've grabbed your children. You're locked in a safe house. And now they're coming after you in your safe house. They're smoking you out. They're trying to kill your babies. when they're shooting, when they're throwing a grenade, when there's so much commotion and blood. And I've been to the war zones and I've felt that intensity of hate. I've felt that horror of like, am I going to make it out of here alive? Now imagine that in your safe space, in your home, your pictures falling to the ground, your cup of coffee being slung out of your hands. You're in a state of shock. You can't breathe and you're being killed. That is the very real reality for every single person that confronted Hamas that day on Saturday, when they stood there and watched as their families took their last breath. How is it possible? How is it even possible that instead of honoring the dead and standing up for human rights and human dignity, did our streets in America, in Dallas, in New York, in Michigan, get turned into a protest against the victim? Imagine how you would feel if you were Israeli. Imagine how you would feel if you're Jewish. Even when you're not Jewish, how would you feel that you are being targeted, the Jewish people, for nothing? For nothing. I'm going to have Liora on the show. She is the director of Stop Anti-Semitism. She's a friend. She is someone who explains this so well, explains what is happening, explains the rise in anti-Semitism in America and across the globe, and is trying to, and I think she's doing a phenomenal job of educating people about what this is and what we're seeing transpire in the world today, what this means. You don't want to miss this interview, but I want you to think about this. I want you to think about how many people have you talked to, how many times in school when you were being taught about World War II, where, a teacher may have come up and said, and that's for those of us that actually learned that, they may not even be teaching it the same way now, but where teachers would say, what would you have done if you were a German? Would you have stood up to the Nazis? Would you have stood up to these monsters? And everyone I remember is like, oh, I would have never fallen for that. I would have stood up to it, even if it meant my own death. I just want you to look at what's happening today. Just watch what is transpiring today and realize that the majority of people probably would not have stood up to the Nazis, that the majority of people would buy into the propaganda and the lies about the Jewish people. And that, my friends, terrifies me. It terrifies me because it tells me we have not learned from history. Folks, human super beats. We all have a heartfelt reason to support our blood pressure. In fact, more than half of the U.S. population would benefit from blood pressure support. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the antioxidants in super beets are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than healthy lifestyle alone. And that's good news. And especially for me, when I have a family that has had heart disease, it's very important that I take care of my health, take care of my heart. And I do that. I not only eat well, exercise, but I take my super beets. I do not miss those one day. I believe in this product. And guess what? It tastes great too. Supporting healthy blood pressure comes with a bonus. Super Beets Heart Chews support healthy circulation. So you not only get blood pressure support, you also get productive, heart healthy energy without the crash. Double your potential with Super Beets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets Heart Chews and 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and using promo code Sara, S-A-R-A. That's getsuperbeets.com, promo code Sara. I have my friend and warrior, for the Jewish people, Liora Rez, on the show. You are the executive director of Stop Anti-Semitism. Liora, I think what happened last weekend was a shock to the spirit and something that you had been warning about. I mean, for years since I've known you, we've been talking about the rise in anti-Semitism and these hate groups like Hamas and Hezbollah and what Iran is doing and how that is spreading across the globe. First, thank you for being with me. I know you don't have a lot of time. Second, I'd like to get your response to that and to what happened Saturday.
Thanks so much for having me back. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. I feel like we're living in a nightmare we can't wake up from. I woke up to 1,200 messages at 6:30 in the morning. Sadly, my brain went to, there's a synagogue bombing somewhere, heaven forbid. And as I started scrolling through these messages, I started shaking my husband next to me in bed and said, oh my God, we have to call our families. Israel is being attacked. We're at war. And it took a few seconds for us to wake up. And again, we're living in a nightmare that we can't wake up from. It is indescribable, unimaginable that this is happening right now in October 2023, that these Hamas barbarians, these savages, are doing what they did and continue to do to the hostages that they kidnapped into Gaza. And it's almost, you just don't have the words. We're learning every day what they're doing to the hostages, to the people they murdered, to the bodies after they murdered these people, to the rising number of Americans involved now in this. It's just, it's a nightmare.
It is. It is a nightmare. It is devastating. I make it a point of reposting on X all of the stories of the individual victims and who they were and how they died by great writers. There's a gal, she's a former UN speechwriter on X that is posting and ensuring that their stories live on. And I'm so mortified. I mean, I'm actually getting goosebumps right now talking to you, thinking about the horror of what these victims went through and what their survivors are and their family members are going to have to live with forever. Just that kind of horror. There was a story, and to me, it exemplifies just the love of a mother. And you're a mother, I'm a mom, but the baby twins, and so many stories where mothers would throw their bodies on top of their children and let the Hamas, the terrorists, take their life and not their child's life, or the mom and dad who put their twin boys in a drawer, their identical twin baby boys in a drawer, and hid them from Hamas as they were being slaughtered right there in the same room. You're right. You said it's hard to believe we're in 2023. I ran into a Russian Jewish woman at Harvard University when I was there for Sean Hannity, and she was in such a state of disbelief, even at her own university. And she's a professor there. She left Russia because of the growing anti-Semitism in Russia. She came to America to find a better life and to live in a country that was free of all of this hatred, she believed. And instead, her own university and the students there turned on her in Israel. And she said, Sara, never again, never again, never again is now. And where do I go? Where do I go? How do you respond to that, Liora?
I think so many people are finally waking up, and we've been shouting this for years now from the rooftops, that these elite universities are breeding grounds for extremists. And what's even more dangerous is that the administrators, the people at the top that are being paid almost seven-figure salaries and up, are not doing anything to protect their Jewish students. And what they're doing instead is further inflaming this hatred and greenlighting it. If we're looking at Harvard University, thankfully there's a list now, a no hire list. And I love this. Name and shame them. You want to be a terrorist supporter? No problem. You're going to be un-hireable.
And they're not kids, Liora, and they're not kids. I mean, I'm sorry, I disagree with Vivek Ramaswamy. These are not children. These are people who are being indoctrinated by professors, but they're adults. They should know the difference between a terrorist organization and a pro-peace movement.
Correct. I can tell you one thing. When I was 19 years old, I was raised in a household that gave me the critical thinking skills to differentiate between a terrorist group that raped babies, kidnapped Holocaust survivors, and I knew that they were wrong and to not be supported. So this nonsense that these are silly teenagers or kids, false. These are grown adults. They're 18 and over. Some of them are graduate students, 22 and over. And they must be held accountable for their endorsement of savages and barbaric hatred. So from Harvard not doing anything, refusing to denounce them, to Yale University, where we have an anti-Semitic professor and the administration there is failing to do anything, from University of Pennsylvania, another Ivy League, President Liz McGill allowed a horrific anti-Semitic conference to continue on her campus, to now refusing again to condemn what happened on October 7th. Until these administrators step down, we call on every single alumni, stop sending them money. We tell the parents, Jewish or not, stop sending your children there. Until there is a change in administration from the top down, starting with these presidents, stop sending them your kids. Stop sending them your money.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think that, that has to not only be said once, we need to say it over and over and over again. You need to expose them. You need to make it very visible. What happened in Israel, you're right, was so barbaric and so unexpected and so shocking that I think it shocked the conscience of the world. But what was even worse was that less than a week after all of those horrific killings and the kidnappings, and they still are holding hostages, it turned on Israel. We saw groups in Dallas, here in New York, people were yelling at me. They were calling me a Zionist. I thought, at one point I was going to get jumped by the crowd, really in Times Square. I wasn't sure how the situation was going to unfold. And we're seeing that across the country. We saw a New York City public school teacher who is teaching the children in that school that Israel is a colonizer, that Israel is committing genocide. What is happening here, Liora? What is happening here that it was Hamas that attacked Israel, innocent civilians, not even going after soldiers, going after innocent people and babies and children, that the world shifted and turned on Israel? Is this about anti-Semitism?
At the core of this, it always comes down to the hatred of Jews. And I want to take a step back for a second and explain to your audience who might not be as versed in what's going on in the region. In 2005, Israel disengaged on Gaza. Not one Jew remained in Gaza. Not one. Israel left them with beautiful beaches, beautiful greenhouses, gorgeous neighborhoods. A few years later, the Palestinian people they got bamboozled. They elected the Hamas regime, which turned into the Iranian regime. They rule by terror. If you go against Hamas, they kill you and your families. If you protest against Hamas, they kill you and your families. The Palestinian people in Gaza elected what they thought was going to be a humanitarian group, helping them to establish a Palestinian state. And instead, they elected barbarians that are holding them hostage. Now, when we look at October 7th, more and more testimony is coming out that these hostages and victims, they were raped, they were sodomized, hands and feet were cut off, some were electrocuted. These savages brought equipment with them to electrocute the dead and alive.
That's
Electrocution. I want to say that. They brought equipment with them to electrocute children. They beheaded children. They tied children's hands together and set the babies on fire.
Allegiance Gold. Imagine a future where your retirement is protected from the storms of market volatility, the erosive forces of inflation, recession, government meddling, and the economic uncertainties. Well, that certainly feels like now. Imagine retiring with peace of mind and the freedom to pursue your own dreams. That future, my dear friends, can become your reality, courtesy of Allegiance Gold. Get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you visit protectwithsara.com today. Guys, we live in really dangerous times, really scary times. This is my personal message to you. Diversify, diversify, diversify. We've got to do that. With over 50 years of combined experience, millions of dollars in completed transactions, resulting in thousands of satisfied clients, help us earn the most trusted gold IRA firm in the nation. I'm telling you, they are great. Look into it yourself. Get up to $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you visit protectwithsara.com today. Or give them a call at 877-702-SARA, S-A-R-A, and speak to one of their experts. They'll answer all your questions and help you get started on a path to a more secure and prosperous retirement. Time is of the essence. Protect your future with Allegiance Gold. Visit protectwithsara.com. That's protectwithsara.com. Hey, folks, if you're enjoying today's show, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to this podcast, The Sara Carter Show, on your favorite podcast app. It really does make a difference. I want to play something for you. I was going to play this at the top of the show, but I'm going to play it for you because this is how I believe this leftist, radical, Hamas supporting America, this weird, dangerous, very dangerous propaganda is playing out.
Do you care about the babies that were beheaded?
No,
the babies
they were never beheaded. That was a made-up story.
How do you
It's not
know?
true. It's show me the pictures now.
So what about
Show
19
me the pictures. You're a lying full of You're full of
I want to say one thing. The individual that stated that are the same people who say, show us the gas chambers. They never happened. 6 million Jews didn't die. Oh, there was a disease. They died of typhus. These are the same Holocaust-denying bigots that we deal with day in and day out. They don't care what's happening with the Palestinians. They have one goal: to express their hatred of the Jews. This is what is the deeps that we're now seeing is the exposure of this deep-rooted anti-Semitism. What's alarming is that these young adults, and like you said, they're not kids, they're adults. They're being indoctrinated into this. And instead of the administrators taking a step back and saying, wow, no one in their right mind should be endorsing or defending or promoting or greenlighting those that torture babies, kidnap Holocaust survivors, maim, electrocute, sodomize children, women, the elderly. They're raping the elderly. How does a 20-year-old in their right mind defend that?
They don't.
And then what's even more mind-boggling is that they turn it around and blame the Jew. This is your fault. You caused this. It's the rape victim mentality. It's the blame game.
Well, yes, that's what it is. And you can't even imagine in a day and age where these professors have pushed a woke progressive agenda where you would think that the victim should be the focus of everything, where they should step back and say, whoa, wait a minute. Did you see what happened to Israel? Did you see what Hamas did to Israel? Did you see what happened to these children? Instead, these anti-Semites, this is what I believe this is, because the gentleman called me a Zionist and a Zionist pig. That's what he called me. So he was definitely using tropes from, going all the way back to World War II. And, and I heard that over and over again in these large groups that were marching through the streets. This was certainly not just about Israel. This was about the Jewish people. And that's when it hit me. When the Russian professor that spoke to me said, never again is now. I remembered the documentary my friend did, which is by that title, and the two women that I had met that had fled Amsterdam because of the growing anti-Semitism in Amsterdam. And this was years ago. And I thought to myself, it is right now. All of these people who claimed that they would have never followed Hitler, who claimed that there was no way they would have fallen for these lies and propaganda, are now falling for lies and propaganda and are part of this horrific movement, are part of this evil that is permeating our world. And Israel is in dire straits right now. The Israeli people are going to stand up to this, and I believe they are going to win, and they are going to overcome, and they're going to succeed. But there is a lot of evil out there, Liora, and that's terrifying.
It is. And I want to preface that it's not just on university campuses. This is where Stop Anti-Semitism comes in. Your audience can turn into our social media feeds, Stop Anti-Semitism on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, our website. We're seeing that physicians, nurses, professors, students espousing horrific anti-Semitic rhetoric, endorsing Hamas. Can you imagine being a Jewish mother? We discovered a neonatologist in the Houston area that was promoting Hamas and calling Israel a terrorist Zionist entity. Can you imagine being a Jewish mother taking your 7-day child, a newborn, to somebody like this? What kind of subconscious hatred if they see your Star of David that you're wearing? How do you know that they're going to ensure the care that your baby deserves? So these are the types of people that we're outing, that we're exposing, that society needs to know about, that these anti-Semitic bigots are amongst us, and they need to be outed, and they need to be shunned from society.
Okay, I know I've got to let you go. You have a lot of work ahead of you today. God bless you. God bless your family in Israel. May they stay safe. I'll pray for that. I pray for my friends over there and for our country, because I believe it just started with Israel. It's not going to end with Israel. This is about all of us, and we better wake up. Iran and our adversaries are looking at us too, and they've already divided our nation. Where can our listeners go to help you with your organization and help educate and fight anti-Semitism? Where can they go?
Everyone can head to stopantisemitism.org. All of our social channels are Stop Anti-Semitism. If you see something, say something, report it, whether it's your socials or our website, again, stopantisemitism.org. And again, I cannot preface this enough by saying that, God willing, the American citizens that are kidnapped come home safely and swiftly. The Israelis, the other nationals, the foreign nationals that are being held by these savages, may they be returned in one piece.
Absolutely. God bless you, Liora. Thank you
Thanks so much, Sara. It was a pleasure as always.
I think the most important thing we can do now is pray. Because this isn't just about Israel. This is about every single one of us. There is an enemy out there, and it is extremism. Islamists who believe that the West is the enemy. And they will stop at nothing, mind you, at nothing to get that. And that requires the elimination of Western way of life. That requires the elimination of Israel as well. And we are a target for them. For all of you who were out there joining Hamas, if you are listening to this, joining Hamas in these parades or whatever, protests or whatever it is that are out in the streets, you will be the ones that will be fooled. If you believe that these organizations care about you or care about your freedom or care about life, you are sadly mistaken and you are living in a lie. And for those of you who don't, for those of you who know the difference between good and evil, please stand up to it. Please speak out against it. And like Liora said, remain vigilant. Remain vigilant. We are not out of the woods. This is just the beginning. This is the beginning of something far worse to come. We have enemies out there like Iran, like China, like North Korea, and Russia, who are going to take advantage of our weakness and who are going to take advantage of this situation. And they're not just coming after the Jews, folks. They're coming after all of us. Please make sure you are subscribed to the Sara Carter Show here on your favorite podcast app, whether that's Apple, Spotify, whatever you listen to. I will continue to keep you updated on all the latest that is happening in Israel and around the globe. I will be bringing on experts and sources and people from Israel to this podcast as well, so that they can talk to you directly from where the situation is unfolding. I think that's very important. Listen, follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. I believe you and me together, we are the only ones that can make a difference. God bless you. God bless our great nation. Please pray for peace. Please, God, give peace to those that have lost their lives and save those that are still being held hostage by these demonic monsters. And God bless the great nation of Israel. Thank you.